Hey, so once again, this is a bit of a late reply. Um, you were talking about spirituality in your video, and I have some opinions here, but it's also a little bit difficult for me to speak about spirituality because I've been so skeptical for the better part of my life, and I'm still just opening some doors in this. I'm beginning to open some doors. So I'm not really that far along or on any particular path. I mean, some of the terms that you used in your video, I'm not familiar with them at all. You used some words to describe some different spiritual experiences, like Satori and so I don't know if any of my own experiences can fall into such a well-defined category, but anyway, for me, I think music is first and foremost my gateway into spirituality. And I've been thinking about why it happens, because I've been having spiritual experiences for a long time without even knowing it, I think, through music. And I've been thinking about why, and I think it has something to do with music being easy to focus on. I mean, you can easily get lost in music. It's almost like it drowns out your mental noise, your thoughts. If you can focus, it's like you and the music merge almost. It can feel like that. So that's probably the most common spiritual-like experience that I've had. And recently I've also been using the shadow process to uncover some things. I've been really looking into myself and just pulling out the worst and really trying to turn things around on some areas in my life. And that's probably where I have the most time invested. I mean, I don't know if it's a spiritual practice. I don't think it's more of a psychological, I mean, like therapeutical thing. But it can actually, when you release something that's been buried for that long, it feels spiritual in that way. So it goes together, I guess. But I think if you're looking for a comment on if it's necessary or if it's good for something, I mean, as a spiritual practice and using the shadow process, I think the answer is obviously yes. I think it has many beneficial benefits. I mean, spirituality can be interpreted in so many ways. So I mean, and that can obviously lead to a better understanding of yourself and your environment and the world and how you treat others and the environment and everything. So that's that's a really good part, and for yourself, being healthy. But the most important practice, I think, still is the shadow process. And I mean, you don't even have to use only shadow. That whole, I mean, that's a more systematic approach to digging out from your subconscious, and just looking at yourself truthfully, honestly, and wanting to better yourself. That's a good start as well. I mean, doing that, facing your fears, ultimately leads to so many good things. And I mean, there's so many things wrong in the world just because people aren't being honest with themselves about who they are, and people would rather push that away, push that down, but then they will have to deal with it later, and usually it ends in violence, and I mean, ends in chaos. So being more honest with yourself is, I think that's and really being honest with yourself, not just saying that you are and still somehow faking it. I mean, just drop all pretenses and just look at yourself. And probably, I mean, this is probably why shadow is such a good technique to use, because it's so interesting to see what comes up. I mean, many people can misinterpret what shadow means. I think you have to be a bit, I don't know, I mean, you can't just take it and simplify it. It can be quite complicated at times to spot exactly what's been disowned and why. And sometimes they say that you don't really need to know why. I mean, you just need to do the shadow process, turn around the emotions. But for me, it's been much easier to realize, where did it pop up? What specific event did this show up, and why? And when I realize why, it becomes much easier to identify the emotion, or the state, or whatever was disowned. So it's just extremely interesting, and I wish more people would take their own selves more seriously. I mean, you are basically a work in progress. Your entire life is a work in progress. You never stop growing. And because we don't live in a perfect society or a perfect world, we take damage along the way, and we need something to heal. So maybe that's where spirituality can come in. I mean, it doesn't have to be this big religious monopoly of, it can be a normal thing, just a way to connect with who you are and your surrounding, and I mean, it doesn't have to be more complicated, it doesn't have to be more mystical. Usually people tend to get into it, and I mean, that's what it does, because it's so powerful if you open those doors. But that also creates a rift between people who are enlightened and people who are skepticals. They see each other as lunatics. They can't even relate to each other anymore. I mean, the enlightened people see destructive, hateful, close-minded beings, and I mean, the skeptics see fanatics.